Hello, hope you're all doing okay today. Today we're talking about professional sport. So how many of you watched football last night? All right, this is chapter 9. Professional sport exemplifies sport at its highest level of performance, and it generates a significant amount of the coverage in traditional mass media, such as print and television, in new media outlets such as sports websites, and across social media platforms. Professional sport is in any sport activity or skill for which the athletes receive compensation for performance. Compensation can be in the form of salaries, medal bonuses, corporate sponsorships, expense reimbursements, or any other type of direct payment. Players compete in team sports such as baseball, rugby, cricket, or dual sports such as tennis, doubles, badminton doubles, or individual sports such as boxing, bowling, race car driving. Compared to other levels of sport, professional team sports have a profound national and international economic impact. Professional sport events such as the Ultimate Fighting Championship or the UFC, the Super Bowl, the World Series, the FIFA World Cup, the Cricket World Cup, the Indianapolis 500, the Kentucky Derby, and the X Games have become significant personal and cultural events for many people throughout the world. Professional sports provide considerable entertainment and pleasure for spectators. Therefore, demands on the three principles that form the professional sport industry, such as labor, management, and governance, are complex, diverse, and ever-changing. Labor, in regards to the professional athletes, aggressively protects and procures additional resources for its membership. The athletes are typically represented by a union head in negotiations with management. Management refers to the collective group of coaches, owners, and managers that negotiate with the players or labor. And finally, governance. The professional sport leagues attempt to regulate but not completely control labor and management. Governance is typically represented by a league commissioner who is responsible for signing player contracts, developing and implementing league rules and regulations, and handling disputes and discipline, amongst other responsibilities. Professional sport can be traced to the Olympics in ancient Greece. Olympic sport has historically been viewed as amateur sport, but some early Olympic athletes received compensation. Beginning with the Olympic Games in 776 BCE, a class of professionals in sport known as athlete existed. Athlete were well-paid men recruited from mercenary armies and trained exclusively for brutal competition. In exchange for competing and winning, athletes often received remuneration in the form of prizes and money. Although some earlier Olympians received remuneration for their participation, the Olympics were largely defined by a code of amateurism. In the 19th century, the International Olympic Committee, or IOC, adopted the notion of amateurism, thus prohibiting known professional athletes from participating. By late 20th century, however, the amateur rule was abolished and several sports within the Olympics became dominated by professional athletes. Outside of the Olympics, boxers, jockeys, and runners were some of the first athletes to receive compensation for their athletic prowess during the early and mid-19th century. Baseball was the first team sport to employ professionals. Similar to the Olympics, baseball had a history of amateurism while under the governance of the National Association of Baseball Players, or NABBP. But in response to players being secretly paid, the association established a professional category. Although professional team sport has existed for more than 100 years, only in the past 80 years have professional sport opportunities been available to minorities in the United States. The National Colored Baseball League was founded in 1887 as an outlet for African American baseball players who were not allowed to play in the all-white major leagues. This league unfortunately failed because of low attendance. Professional outlets, sport outlets for women have arisen only in the past 80 years as well. In the 1940s, the first women's professional league, the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, was formed. Created in 1943 in response to decreased player quality in MLB during World War II and the popularity of women's amateur softball. The AAGPBL played 11 seasons before folding in 1954 because of poor management. Since 1954, many other women's professional leagues have operated. In 1996, two women's professional basketball leagues were formed, the American Basketball League and the WNBA. The ABL folded in 1998 due to financial difficulties that were partly attributed to competition from the NBA-sponsored WNBA. In 1997, the Women's Professional Fast Pitch Softball League began. Since the turn of the century, the Women's United Soccer Association and Women's Professional Soccer (WPS) were formed and then ceased operations. The National Women's Soccer League (NWSL) started in 2013 and continues today with teams from Portland to Boston and from Chicago to Orlando. In contrast to other women's sports that have a history of multiple defunct or active leagues, the LPGA and the WTA have been in existence since 1950 and 1973, respectively. Four aspects of professional sport distinguish it from other industries: interdependence, structure, and governance, labor management, relations, and the role of electronic and new media. The central premise differentiating professional team sport from any other business is the need for teams to compete and cooperate simultaneously. You'll see here in this graphic the evolution of media, and we'll be talking about it next. In other words, the teams depend on one another to produce the games that constitute the product. In his classic work on the NFL, The League, David Harris in 1986 described this unique situation as league think. When teams function together collectively, some teams sacrifice the potential for higher revenue in the interest of league stability. For example, the New York Giants and the Cleveland Browns typically sell a disproportionate amount of NFL licensed merchandise. This money, however, is pooled and shared equally among all 32 NFL teams. The presence of the Giants and Browns in the Collective Bargaining Agreement, or CBA, increases the revenue generated for all NFL member teams. Because of their location in large television markets, the Dallas Cowboys and the Chicago Bears function in much the same way during television negotiations. The key is that all members make sacrifices and concessions for the long-term benefit and growth of the league. Although major professional sport leagues differ in the extent to which they share revenue, each league pools its revenues to some extent. For example, NFL teams all share equally in their national media contracts, such as cable, satellite, and network, and cannot negotiate separate local media contracts, whereas baseball teams share only their national contracts and keep all revenues from their local agreements. These local agreements can vary significantly in the amount of revenue produced. Large market teams, such as clubs located in heavily populated cities that have the potential to negotiate lucrative local media contracts, such as the New York Yankees, have local broadcast packages that are significantly larger than those of a small market team, such as here in Corpus Christi. The clubs in mid-size or smaller markets whose potential for local media contracts is not that high. Over the past couple of decades, the disparity in local revenues has created significant discrepancies in the amount of money MLB teams are able to pay their players. Such revenue disparities led the MLB to implement a luxury tax on teams that had the highest payrolls. Teams with disproportionately high payrolls pay a tax to MLB, and the collected luxury tax money is then shared among teams with lower payrolls. Each professional sport has its own structure and system of governance, typically referred to as the league office, which usually involves the following components. You have a league commissioner, who oversees, of course, the whole league. You have your board of governors or committee structure that's composed of the team owners, and the central administrative unit that negotiates contracts and agreements on behalf of the league and assumes responsibility for scheduling, licensing, record keeping, financial management, discipline and fines, revenue sharing payments, marketing and promotional activities, and developing and managing special events and other functions, such as coordinating publicity and advertising on behalf of the team as a whole. For example, the MLB has 30 teams situated in two leagues, the National and American, you can see here in this graph. Each league consists of three divisions, the East, Central, and West. The MLB commissioner is responsible for representing the interests of all parties associated with professional baseball. These parties include owners, players, fans, television networks, corporate sponsors, host cities and venues, and the minor leagues. Each major league team has affiliate teams in the minor leagues where players are placed according to skill level. For example, the Atlanta Braves have minor league teams in Gwinnett, Georgia, which is a AAA. Jackson, Mississippi is a AA. Kissimmee, Florida, A Advanced. Rome, Georgia, A. And Danville, Virginia is a rookie league. Players in Class AAA or AA can move to the major league team from this level. A Advanced and A players are typically those who have college playing experience or have played in the minor leagues for 2 to 3 seasons. Rookie players are those who are newly drafted, but are not prepared for a higher level of play. The cultivation of a minor league is becoming increasingly popular among the other major professional sport leagues. It's something we see here in Corpus Christi with our Corpus Christi Hooks. They are a farm league for the Houston Astros. 5 unique circumstances and conditions are present in the labor management relationship in North American professional sport. Baseball's antitrust exemption, collective bargaining, free agency, salary caps, and player draft. Some of these run counter to common traditional business practices and philosophies, but the participating parties consider these idiosyncrasies essential to preserving the financial stability of the professional sport product. The following sections examine each element and explain its uniqueness and significance to professional sport. Perhaps the most exceptional condition in professional sport is MLB's exemption from the rules and regulations of the Sherman Antitrust Act. This antitrust legislation was created to prohibit companies from dominating their respective markets and interstate commercial activity, thus creating a monopoly in which consumers have only one product choice rather than several. Workers involved in interstate commerce, which includes all professional team sports except MLB because of its antitrust exemption, are covered by the National Labor Relations Act, or NLRA. Enacted by Congress in 1935, the NLRA provides 3 basic rights that are at the center of labor relations policy in the United States. Number 1, the right to self-organize, form, join, or assist labor organizations. Number 2, the right to bargain collectively through agents of one's own choosing. And number 3, the right to engage in concerted activities for employees' mutual aid or protection. In professional team sport, the NLRA provides players the right to join a union, to have a basic player contract, establishing minimum salary, benefits, and working conditions, and negotiated collective by union representatives, and to strike or conduct other activities that help achieve objectives. The term collective bargaining is used because all active league players are in the bargaining unit and thus form a collective unit or labor for negotiating and bargaining with the commissioner and team owners, which is management. Teams join as a league and bargaining with the players' union so that in each league the negotiated contract applies to all teams uniformly. On the other hand, free agency through a collective bargaining agency is the ability of players, after fulfilling an agreed on number of years of service within a team, to sell their services to another team with limited or no compensation to the team losing the players. Thus, the terms free agent and free agency have evolved to signify the relative freedom all professional team sport players have to move from one team to another. Professional team sport, however, still imposes significant restrictions on its labor. For example, players do not immediately become free agents. Instead, free agency is a negotiated item in the collective bargaining agreement of all professional team sport leagues. The CBA recognizes the investment the team has incurred in developing the player while also recognizing the fair market value of the player in the open market. With the onset of free agency in the 1970s, players who became unrestricted free agents, those who had fulfilled the terms of their contracts, were able to sign with the highest bidder of whom they chose. Consequently, spending on player salaries rose significantly, and particularly among teams with greater resources. In response, salary caps setting a ceiling on player payrolls were created to protect the owners from overbidding for talent. Salary caps are agreements collectively bargained between labor and management, establishing a league-wide team payroll threshold that can't be exceeded in most cases. The salary cap is typically set using a percentage of league gross revenue as a starting point. In accordance with the principles of league think, the player draft aims to be an equitable system for distributing new talent among all league members. The draft provides each professional sport league with a mechanism for the teams with poor records to have an advantage over teams with winning records and acquiring talented new players. Through the draft, teams voluntarily agreed to restrict competition for new talent. As a result, the team that drafts a player determines the player's destination and salary. The electronic and new media, network television, cable and satellite television, terrestrial and satellite radio, and the internet play a critical role in driving the popularity of professional sport and generating additional revenue for associated teams. New media sources such as satellite television and the internet could be the next important horizons and broadening the reach of professional team sport and enhancing league revenue streams. No single factor has influenced the popularity of sport. The escalation in player salaries, free agency, and the growth and increase of corporate involvement in professional sport more than television. TV has helped elevate professional sport beyond competition and athleticism into the realm of entertainment. Monday Night Football, which is now on ESPN through 2021, was a pioneering effort to package professional sport as entertainment. I think it was probably successful, don't you? Leagues associated with professional sport need TV for three reasons. First, as already discussed, the leagues and member teams receive significant revenue outlays from network, satellite, and cable TV agreements. Second, TV enhances the enjoyment associated with watching professional sport events. And third, TV helps increase the amount that teams and leagues can charge for corporate and individual sponsorships because of the increased exposure that it provides. Satellite television and the internet have greatly increased sport fans' access to a full menu of sport events. Satellite technology and satellite television providers such as DirecTV have worked with the leagues to create packages whereby the average sport fan can access any game during the season either by paying an upfront fee for season-long access or by subscribing, paying a one-time fee on a game-by-game basis. The NFL and DirecTV extended and expanded the deal to 8 years and is worth $1.5 billion US annually for the NFL. Satellite radio provider SiriusXM also allows displaced fans an opportunity to follow their favorite teams on a regular basis for a monthly fee. The internet is affording fans a higher level of access to games of interest. Increasingly, the right to stream live games or other team and league-related content directly to tablets and smartphones is a significant part of media rights negotiations. In 2016, Twitter negotiated a deal with the NFL to live stream video of 10 Thursday night football games. Approximately 243,000 people tuned in to the social media outlet to watch the first live stream game between the New York Jets and the Buffalo Bills. Revenue sources for sport organization is discussed in more detail in Chapter 15, but we'll discuss just a little bit of the unique aspects of revenue generation in professional sport. One major distinction found with respect to media revenue in professional sport, namely the MLB, the NBA, the WNBA, MLS, and NHL, all permit their member teams to negotiate local television contracts for regular season games, but the NFL does not. This arrangement results in great revenue disparities among the teams. The leagues have been successful in increasing the total rights fees paid in recent negotiations, in part because the leagues have been able to discover and subsequently charge for new ways to deliver game video and associated content. However, the future ability to increase right fees may be lessened due to the following factors. Many leagues now have their own networks. MLB Network, NHL, NBA TV, NFL Network, from which to broadcast games. Hence, the leagues are becoming limited competitors as well as partners. The leagues may seek to increase the inventory offered by their own networks, which could decrease the rights fees generated from outside sources. Sponsorship dollars that are a large part of television rights were diminished by the economic crisis that began in 2008. Leisure and entertainment offerings have never been more fragmented and diverse. In addition, there are alternative delivery options such as smartphones and tablets are changing the way people consume live sporting events. As late as 1950, gate receipts and concessions accounted for more than 92% of the revenue of professional teams. With the increasing importance of media revenue, professional sports teams have become less reliant on gate receipts, although they remain the major source of revenue for the NHL and MLS teams as well as minor league teams. In addition, gate receipts have historically been the most important source of revenue for newer professional leagues such as the WNBA. The home team retains most of the gate receipts, but to varying degrees depending on the league. A portion of the gate receipts is given to the league to cover their operating expenses, and a portion of the proceeds may be given to the visiting team. Licensing revenues are generated when leagues and teams grant merchandise and apparel manufacturers the right to use their names and logos. In return for that right, the leagues and teams receive a royalty, a percentage of the selling price for each item sold by the manufacturers. These agreements have been an increasingly lucrative source of revenue for professional teams. Licensing programs, which are administered by the league offices, distribute the revenues equally among the teams. Domestic licensing revenue, however, has begun to plateau as the market for such merchandise has become saturated. The ability to continue to increase licensing revenue depends partly on the growth and demand for league licensed video games and the demand for league licensed products overseas. Although leagues continue to seek new opportunities for revenue growth, this revenue stream appears to have leveled off over the last dozen years. Corporate sponsorships have become one of the main sources of revenue for professional sports teams and leagues. Consider for a moment the magnitude of the following sponsorship agreements. MetLife is paying $450 million over 25 years for the naming rights of New York Jets and Giants MetLife Stadium. Citigroup is paying $400 million over 20 years for Citi Field, home of the New York Mets. And Barclays PLC is paying $200 million over 20 years to name the basketball arena in Brooklyn, New York, the Barclays Center. Most leagues and teams have more than 100 sponsorship agreements in place, and they are always looking for more. However, as aforementioned, revenue per agreement has dropped in recent years, which puts more pressure on teams and leagues to find additional sponsors to make up the revenue shortfall. One of the benefits provided to sponsors is signage that is visible in the sport venue and on television for local broadcasts only. The demand for a signage location that is visible to attendees and television viewers has led sport marketers to seek new and innovative display techniques such as rotating signage placed on scoreboards and around playing surfaces that rotates the advertisement shown, usually in 15 to 30-second intervals. LED or light-emitting diode signage, computer-generated signage that can be animated, and virtual signage, also computer-generated, but imposed over an existing space such as the wall behind home plate and telecast during baseball games. This is not to say that gate receipts are not of consequence to MLB, the NBA, and the NFL. For example, in 2016, the Yankees grossed an estimated $259 million in gate receipts and a premium seat sales. Table 19 provides a sample of attendance and information from a variety of professional sport leagues. I'll let you check that out. Professional sport teams will face a variety of challenges and opportunities in the future. Maintaining labor management relations. Given the history of acrimony between players and owners and the history of work stoppages, a continual challenge for professional sport will be ensuring the games go on. Although a variety of issues create tension between labor and management, the most visible conflict is associated with the owner's desires to manage costs, which are mostly tied to players' salaries. At the same time, the players are seeking their fair share of the ever-increasing revenues generated by teams and their owners. For this reason, labor disputes are likely to continue to occur. Managing new technology. The same technologies that have helped spread the popularity of professional sport and increase revenue have also created the most competitive entertainment and leisure landscape ever. About 3 decades ago, people could access 4 or 5 TV channels. Today, technology presents challenges to the traditional business models employed by professional sport. For instance, consumers can access hundreds of channels and choose from a wide variety of entertainment options without even leaving their home. Video games, movies, numerous outdoor activities, the internet, texting, social media, and other activities occupy people's time as never before and compete with the consumption of sporting events. However, technology also increases new opportunities for revenue generation. Streaming video content to handheld devices such as smartphones and tablets as a new way to deliver broadcasts. Also adopting innovative technologies such as virtual reality for professional sport events may transform the landscape of new revenue streams in the sport industry. Dealing with globalization, new technologies and the means to facilitate the spread of sport across international boundaries are emerging every day. Globalization can mean any or all of the following activities: sales and distribution of broadcast and other media rights outside of the country of origin, merchandise sales outside of the country of the team identified on the merchandise, corporate partnerships that can be activated outside the country of origin of the corporate entity, exhibition contests, regular season games, and tours played outside of the continental U.S. and Canada by U.S. professional teams and leagues, and by college conferences and their respective teams. Extending social media content outside the national boundaries of the country that produced the content. Another significant decision facing the leagues is whether to put a professional team outside North America. This issue raises several challenges, such as how to deal with cultural differences and account for exchange rates. At a league-specific level, NFL Europe, the NFL's former development league that played games in the spring and summer, was never profitable, and its long-term viability was always in question. And I thank you for joining me today. I look forward to talking with you again. Have a great day.